My stepfather decided he was my doctor, my judge, and my executioner all in one night. He went into my room while I was asleep, took the pills that were literally keeping me alive, called them suspicious, and flushed them down the toilet to protect the family. Those pills weren't drugs. They were part of a clinical trial that was finally giving me a chance at a normal life. By the time I realized what he'd done, it was already too late for my Baftiand, almost too late for my faith in anyone. But if he thought I'd just cry, break down, and let him play the hero in his own story, he had no idea who he was dealing with. I'm Isla, and I didn't grow up with a normal body. By the time I was 15, my immune system was basically a glitchy software update that never installed right. I was always tired, always sick, always one step away from collapsing in the school hallway. While other girls were complaining about gym class, I was trying not to pass out walking up the stairs. For years, doctors poked and prodded me, ran blood panels, scans, tests, more tests, then more tests to explain the fatigue, the chronic pain, the brain fog. Finally, at 20, I got something close to an answer, and, with it, a tiny sliver of hope. A clinical trial. Dr. Collins, my specialist, sat across from me in his office, his glasses low on his nose, fingers steepled. Ayla, this trial is promising, he said gently. It's not a cure, but the early results are, honestly, impressive. Reduced flare-ups, better energy. You'd be monitored closely, but it could change your life. My life, the one that so far had felt like it belonged more to hospitals than to me. I'll do it, I said, my voice shaking a little. Whatever it takes. There were long documents, consent forms, emergency contacts. We reviewed everything in front of my mom, Linda, who clutched her coffee cup like it was the only thing anchoring her to the floor. My stepfather, Mark, didn't come. He said stuff like that makes him queasy. That should have been my first warning. Mark married my mom when I was 18. By then, my dad was a ghost alive somewhere, in another state, with a new family and a new life that didn't include us. Mark came into our lives like a rescuer. That was his word, not mine. He liked to tell people he saved my mom from being a single mother. He liked to talk about bringing order into a broken home. He liked to brag about how this house used to be chaos, but not anymore. On the outside, he was charming. Crisp shirts, smooth voice, polite smile. He worked as a school counselor, so he had this polished, professional calm that made people trust him instantly. Inside our house, though it was his kingdom, his rules, all the doors stay unlocked. No secrets in this house. Isla, I don't like the tone you use with your mother. Isla, we don't talk about sickness like it owns you. That's just negative thinking. He said everything with this patronizing calm, like he was the wise leader of a self-help seminar and I was his stubborn student. Mom tried to keep the peace. He's just trying to help, she would say, her blue eyes pleading with me. You know how he is about keeping the family safe. Just give him time. The pills from the trial came in a white box with my name printed clearly on the label, and the logo of the research hospital. Each tablet was individually sealed in little blisters with barcodes and dates. It looked official. It was official. For the first time in years, I felt something other than tired. After a few weeks, the fog started to lift. I could wake up before noon without feeling like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. I could focus. I could laugh without it hurting. You look brighter, Mom said one day as we sat at the kitchen table. I feel brighter, I said, popping one of the trial pills with a glass of water. Mark walked in at that exact moment. His eyes landed on the pill, then the box. What's that? He asked, his voice casual, but his eyes sharp. It's my medication, I said, from the clinical trial I told you about. Remember? He frowned. I thought that was still being discussed. You're already taking it. We signed all the paperwork, Mom replied. I told you, Mark. Dr. Collins said it was a good opportunity. He didn't look at her. He kept staring at me. So you're just putting experimental chemicals in your body? I felt my jaw tighten. Yes. With doctors monitoring me, with weekly check-ins, with lab tests. It's not some random thing I bought in an alley. He gave a single, stiff nod, but I saw the way his eyes lingered on the box like it was a bomb about to go off. Later that night, I heard them arguing in the living room. You didn't even tell me you were signing her up, Mark hissed. I did tell you, Mom insisted. You brushed it off. You said you didn't want to hear all the medical jargon. because this is exactly what happens. Drug companies using desperate people as guinea pigs. What if it hurts her? What if it makes her worse? How will that look? That last part. How will that look? That was Mark in one sentence. He didn't care how things were as much as how they looked. I should have known he wasn't just going to let it go. The night everything exploded. I remember the smallest details, the hum of the bathroom fan, the faint smell of lavender from the candle Mom had lit in the hallway, the distant sound of the neighbor's dog barking. I'd taken my evening dose and gone to bed early. My body, finally stabilizing on the trial meds, liked the routine. I fell asleep with my phone in my hand, a podcast still playing in my earbuds. At around 2 a.m., I woke up with that weird sense that something was off. My bedroom door was slightly open. I always closed it fully. I sat up, my heart beginning to race. The house was mostly dark, but there was a faint light coming from the hallway, like someone had turned on the bathroom light and didn't close the door properly. I got up, still groggy, and walked out bare feet cold on the wooden floor. That's when I heard it. A flush. Then another. The sound of packaging crinkling. No, I breathed, my stomach dropping. I walked faster, then practically ran around the corner into the bathroom. Mark was standing over the toilet, my white pill box open on the counter, the blister packs ripped apart. For a split second, the scene didn't register. It was like my brain refused to translate what my eyes were seeing. Then I saw my name on the box, soaked, the cardboard soft and warped, and I saw him with a handful of my pills, flicking them into the water. "What are you doing?" I screamed, my voice coming out high and broken. He jumped, but only slightly. "Isla, go back to bed," he said, like I was a child interrupting an adult conversation. I lunged for the box, but half of the blister packs were already empty, their little capsules gone. I tried to grab what was left from his hand, but he pushed me back with one arm, firm and unyielding. "Stop," I cried. "Those are my meds. Those are from the trial. What are you doing?" "I'm protecting this family," he snapped. His calm veneer cracked, and for the first time, I saw real anger in his eyes. "You think I'm going to sit here and watch you poison yourself with who knows what, because some pharmaceutical company wants test subjects?" I stared at him, shaking. "They're not poison. They're the reason I can stand here and argue with you without collapsing." He flushed the toilet again. The remaining pills swirled away, disappearing in a whirlpool of white foam. The sound felt like a punch. "You're welcome," he said, breathing hard. "You'll thank me one day when you realize I stopped you from ruining your body, from putting all of us through some disaster." I felt something inside me crack. "You didn't do this for me," I whispered. "You did this for you, for how it looks, for your perfect family image." He straightened, coldness sliding back over his features. "I did it to protect this home. No more of this clinical experiment nonsense. You'll eat healthy, you'll exercise, and we'll pray for your healing. That's it." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, but instead, I did what my body always did under stress. I started shaking uncontrollably. He brushed past me, leaving the box on the counter like a corpse. "Go back to bed," he repeated. "We'll talk tomorrow, when you calm down." By morning, my mom knew. I was sitting at the kitchen table, my hands wrapped around an untouched mug of tea. When she came in, I could tell she'd already spoken to him. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "Allah," she said, voice hoarse. "Mark told me what happened." I looked up slowly. "He destroyed my trial meds, Mom. They can't replace them easily. They're carefully tracked. He might have gotten me kicked out of the trial. Do you understand what that means?" She nodded shakily. I know. I called the research center as soon as I found out." "What did they say?" My voice was a whisper. "They said, you need to come in today. They need to evaluate you." And she paused, swallowed. "And they're not sure if they can keep you in the program. There are strict rules about tampering with the medication." I felt everything inside me go cold. Mark walked in then, acting like this was a normal morning. He poured himself coffee. "We'll explain," he said calmly. "We'll tell them we had concerns, that we realized we weren't comfortable with unknown drugs in the house. They'll understand." I stared at him, stunned. "So now it's we." He didn't reply. At the research center, everything felt too bright, too clean, too sharp. Dr. Collins met us in a small consultation room. His jaw was tight, and his usual calm was replaced with a thin, controlled frustration. "Isla," he said, looking at me, not at them. "We examined the returned packaging." "Returned?" I said bitterly. "You mean what was left after he flushed them?" Mark shifted in his chair but stayed silent. Dr. Collins continued. silent. Dr. Collins continued. This isn't a minor issue. The trial requires strict adherence to dosing and accountability of every pill. When medications are destroyed or tampered with, it compromises the data and your safety. We have to report it. Can I stay in? I asked. I already knew the answer, but I had to hear it. His eyes softened. Given the extent of the loss and the fact that someone in your home is not supportive of the trial. No, I'm sorry, Isla. We have to withdraw you. It felt like my lungs stopped working. So that's it, I croaked. My chance at getting better is just gone. We'll explore other treatments, he said softly. But this trial, yes, this door is closed now. Mark spoke up, his voice smooth. Doctor, I accept responsibility, but surely you can understand our concern. Experimental drugs. Dr. Collins cut him off, for the first time letting real anger show. Mr. Turner, you signed the consent forms as Ayla's emergency contact. You were present when we explained the trial, the risks, and the safeguards. My head snapped to Mark. You were there. He avoided my eyes. I skimmed them. It was a lot of legal jargon. I didn't realize. Yes, you did, I whispered. You knew exactly what those pills were. Dr. Collins exhaled slowly. We'll document everything. Isla, if you ever need a statement from us about what happened here, we'll provide it. I didn't understand what he meant in that moment, but later, those words would matter. Over the next few weeks, my body began to remind me exactly why I'd begged to join that trial. The fatigue came back first, heavy and relentless. Then the pain, like someone had turned the volume knob up on every nerve in my body. My joints ached. My muscles felt like they were made of wet sand. I missed work. I missed plans with the 3 friends I actually had energy for. I missed feeling like maybe, just maybe, I was going to have a future that didn't revolve around pain. Mark treated it all like an unfortunate side effect of my negative mindset coming back. You were doing better because you believed. You were doing better, he said one evening, as I lay curled up on the couch. That's the power of the mind. You don't need chemicals for that. I wasn't doing better because of a mindset, I said quietly. I was doing better because something was finally working. He shook his head sympathetically, like I was the one who just didn't get it. The more I hurt, the more a different part of me started to wake up. Something fierce, something done being polite. He had taken something from me that he had no right to touch, and he'd done it with full knowledge. He'd read the consent forms. He knew. He destroyed them anyway, and framed it as heroism. That's when Dr. Collins' words came back to me. If you ever need a statement from us about what happened here, we'll provide it. What happened wasn't just unfortunate. It wasn't just family drama. It was interference with medical treatment. It was a deliberate act that had consequences for my health and my future. And for the first time, I started thinking about consequences for him. Revenge, when you're exhausted and in pain, doesn't look like dramatic movie scenes. It looks like late nights on the couch, laptop balanced on your knees, searching terms like medical interference, adult patient rights, and tampering with clinical trials. I learned a lot. I learned that clinical trials are tightly regulated, and that participants have rights. I learned that destroying someone's prescribed or trial medication without consent can be considered abuse, neglect, even a form of medical coercion. I learned that Mark, as a school counselor, was bound by ethical standards about respecting people's autonomy and well-being, and I learned how to document. I stopped arguing with him. I stopped screaming, stopped reacting. I became very, very quiet. When he made his little comments, I know you're mad now, Isla, but one day you'll see I saved your life. I wrote it down. Date, time, exact words. When he told my mom, she needs firm boundaries, not more pills. I wrote that down too. I requested a copy of my clinical trial file from the hospital. They sent it with a statement attached describing why I was removed and the incident involving a household member destroying the investigational medication without patient consent. I highlighted that part. Then I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer. Her name was Rachel, and she had this calm, razor-sharp energy that made me feel like I'd finally found someone who spoke my language. She listened to my story, flipping through the stack of documents I'd brought in my medical history, the trial paperwork, Dr. Collins' statement, and my notes about what Mark had said and done. When I finished, my hands were shaking. I don't know if I want to sue him, I admitted. I don't even know if I have the energy for that. I don't want him to think he can do this to people and still get to be a rescuer all the time. I don't want him to hurt someone else. Rachel nodded slowly. What he did is serious. At the very least, it's interference with medical treatment. Possibly more. You're an adult. He had no legal right to destroy your medication, trial or not. Can anything actually happen to him? I asked. She smiled faintly. More than you might think, especially given his profession. School counselors are held to ethical codes and often professional standards. If he's willing to blatantly disregard your bodily autonomy, I'd be interested in what else he's comfortable ignoring. We talked options. Legal action was on the table, but it would be long and draining. However, Rachel also mentioned something else, reporting him to his licensing board and to the school district where he worked. With your doctor's statement, the trial report, and your own account, she said, there's a strong case that his judgment is compromised. They may investigate, they may require training, suspension, or even removal, depending on what they find. I thought about all the students who went to him, vulnerable and trusting, believing he was there to protect them. He had used protecting the family as his excuse to destroy my meds. What was he calling protection at school? Let's do it, I said quietly. The day the house of cards started to fall, it seemed normal. I was at home, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling absent-mindedly through my phone. Mom was folding laundry on the couch. Mark was due home from school any minute. He walked in later than usual, his face pale and tight. Long day, Mom asked, trying to sound cheerful. He didn't answer. He set his bag down slowly, then looked at me. What did you do? He asked, his voice low and dangerous. My heart sped up, but I kept my expression calm. What do you mean? Don't play dumb, he snapped. I was called into the principal's office. Then they had someone from the district. They said there were concerns about my conduct at home. They mentioned a clinical trial. They mentioned destroying medications. They had a copy of a report from your doctor. I held his gaze. So they know, I said quietly. His eyes narrowed. You're trying to ruin my career. No, I replied, my voice steady. I'm making sure you can't ruin anyone else's life the way you ruined mine. Mom looked between us, confused and panicking. What is going on? I turned to her. I reported what he did, Mom, to the trial team, to a lawyer, to the board that oversees his job. They're investigating him. Her hand flew to her mouth. Mark stepped closer to me, his voice shaking with fury. Do you have any idea what you've done? This could destroy everything I've built, my reputation, my work. I stood up slowly. I was smaller than him, weaker than him physically, but in that moment, I felt something he didn't. Clarity. You destroyed everything I was finally starting to build, I said, my health, my chance at a better life. You read the consent forms. You knew what those pills were, and you flushed them anyway. Then you told yourself it was heroic. He pointed a trembling finger at me. I did it to protect you. No, I replied. You did it to protect your image of what this family should look like. You can say you're a protector all you want, but now other people get to decide if that's true. Mom started crying. Quiet, broken sobs. Mark, did you really know? Did you really read those forms? He froze. That split second of hesitation was her answer. She sat down heavily. I watched something crumble in her face, a belief, a trust, a story she'd told herself about the man she married. I can't believe you, she whispered. You said you were confused, that you thought they were something dangerous. He tried to reach for her, but she pulled away. Don't, she said. Just that one word, but it hit both of us. The investigation at his job didn't resolve overnight, but the cracks deepened fast. Parents were notified that the school counselor was under review for ethical concerns. He was placed on leave. His colleagues stopped calling at home. The silence between him and my mom grew louder every day. He tried to spin it, of course, to her, to anyone who would listen. This is a misunderstanding. Ayla's sick and emotional. She's been manipulated by lawyers. But every time he said it, he sounded less sure. Meanwhile, Rachel kept me updated. The board is taking it seriously, she said over the phone one afternoon. And the documentation from your doctor is strong. You did the right thing by reporting it. I didn't suddenly get my health back. Reporting him didn't fix my body or magically put me back into the trial. Some damage just stays, but I did get something else back. My voice. I wasn't the fragile girl in the background of his rescuer narrative anymore. I was the one who told the truth. A few months later, Mark moved out. Mom filed for separation first, then divorce. It wasn't just what he'd done to me, she said. It was what it revealed about who he really was. She said. It was what it revealed about who he really was. I kept telling myself he was strict because he cared. She told me one evening as we drank tea at the same kitchen table where all of this had started. I wanted to believe he was protecting us, but love doesn't look like that. Protection doesn't look like that. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We both wanted to believe in his version of the story, I said, but we get to write our own now. She smiled weakly. You know, your lawyer called me. She said she's proud of you. Said most people never push back like that. I shrugged, feeling oddly shy. I didn't do it alone. But inside, I knew, if I hadn't started documenting, hadn't reached out, hadn't refused to let what he did stay hidden, he'd still be out there telling people he saved me from dangerous pills. Now, every time he tries to play the hero, there'll be a shadow behind that story. The truth, I still live with chronic illness. I still have bad days where my body feels like it's made of glass and sand and fire all at once. But I also have boundaries now. My meds are locked in a safe box only I can open. My medical choices are mine, protected by law, not just by hope. I have doctors who respect me and a mom who's finally starting to see her own strength. And Mark, last I heard, he was still under review, still trying to salvage his image. Maybe he'll manage it, maybe he won't. Either way, he'll never again have the power to walk into my room, decide he knows better than my doctors, and flush my future down the toilet while calling it love. He called what he did protection. Call what I did revenge, just not the kind he was expecting. No screaming, no scenes, just truth, documentation, and consequences. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Would you have reported him, or tried to keep the peace for the sake of family? Let me know in the comments. And if this story hit you in any way, if you've ever had your choices taken away, for your own good, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear they're not crazy for wanting control over their own life. This is Ayla, and this was the story of how my stepfather destroyed my suspicious medication to protect the family, and how I made sure he finally faced the consequences.